let's talk a little bit about, did you get introduced to any formal type of strength and conditioning? It sounds like you guys trained a lot off season. So what was that first kind of intro to let's practice or train for baseball outside of the diamond?
Yeah, so it was super cool. My high school coach for my freshman through junior year was a first round draft pick for the Oakland A's. I don't know what year, it was a while back. But his best friend was the manager of the Houston Astros. So we actually got to use the Astros strength and conditioning program my freshman and sophomore year. And this is when they had like Roger Clemens and Andy Pettit, and they were, really, really good. And then the next year, his son, who played at the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, ended up coming back to be an assistant coach. So we used Tennessee strength and conditioning program. And then my senior year, they brought in a guy who was, in hindsight, like knowing what I know now, very knowledgeable and very advanced, but he wanted us to do the fundamentals. And, you're 17 years old and you've just been the University of Tennessee's strength and conditioning program, and this guy wants you to practice landing off of a bench. Like, no, we're not doing that. So we ended up doing some CrossFit stuff on, I think it was like Tuesdays and Thursdays we had off, because he believed in recovery and repair, which again, I'm on board with now. But back then we were like, no, we're going to do CrossFit and just like bash our heads into the wall every day of the week. So that's kind of the exposure. So it was a very comprehensive exposure for a high school athlete, but nothing. It's weird because like you just never get into a full rhythm as a high school athlete, because you end up, having exams or whatever. You miss a lot of sessions, and there's a lot of things that you don't do that I would say are requisites for performing down the road. Like we did no single leg stuff, no single arm stuff. Like it was just all get big, get strong, get explosive, and no foundational work.
That's how most high school athletes, I think, like, especially previous generations, that's kind of unfortunate because we just didn't know at the time, but that's how most of us got started into the field. Even my journey included, when I started with strength and conditioning, all it was to just try to get stronger, get bigger, move as much weight as you can. It wasn't necessarily translating all to your sport or your performance, right? But it was helping you develop some strength capacity. But before we get into that, so you mentioned that, okay, you guys were exposed to all of these different training methods, and even CrossFit was thrown in there. So were you guys going to a CrossFit gym or facility, or who was leading the CrossFit workouts on your recovery days?
It was actually my assistant baseball coach, who I remain in touch with today. He's actually doing some awesome things with some Brand X method, which is the CrossFit Kids, I guess, faction of CrossFit. So he would help us do that. We just did it in the facility. And to be fair to him, it was me. And like, I knew I was playing at that point, my senior year, I knew I was going to play college baseball somewhere. And then my other friend who was going to the Naval Academy. So like that type of training was very like starting to become popular amongst the military population. So it's not like he had the whole team doing that. It was just us two. And again, like not the smartest thing we could have done, but yeah, so he led it. And like at the time we actually had a CrossFit level 1 certified coach who he was a volleyball coach. So he wasn't obviously monitoring our fall workouts, but he then took over for like our off season stuff. He would make sure that we were actually doing things right, taught us the fundamentals of CrossFit, and was really good and still is an amazing coach, still at the gym down in New Orleans that whenever I'm home, I still go visit them. So we were fortunate there.
Yes, it sounds like you guys were around a lot of good instruction, good training.